Hello and welcome to Royal Cyber's HATS video tutorial series. Today we'll see how to assign the values of HATS global variables to macro variables. This actually is quite a handy feature in HATS which enables us to utilize the values of HATS global variables while a macro is playing and make decisions based on these values. We're going to show this feature with the help of an example scenario. Consider this whole screen. Here we have a history display screen with a list of dates. Each date has its input field to its left. For example, the input field for the first date is located to its left, and similarly for the other fields for the other dates. The input field for the first date is located at row number 7 and column 3, as you can see in the bottom right. To view the transactions corresponding to a particular screen date, the user needs to type an X in the input field corresponding to the date and send an enter command to the mainframe to view the data corresponding to it. So here's the transformation of the whole screen that we just saw. A link widget renders the dates into a clickable list. Here you can see the row and column on the first date. Now, upon clicking any date, an X is sent to the corresponding input field on the mainframe along with an enter key. When this happens, the mainframe screen changes and a macro is played on the resulting screen. This macro gathers data from various other screens. Now when the macro is playing, it encounters a host screen which is very similar to the date selection screen that you just saw. Now how does the macro know which date was selected on the first screen? Here lies a problem. We need to select the same date on the new screen that you selected before, but this time inside the macro. So here's what we're going to do. We'll save the row and column values with the click date in two global variables, and one for row, one for column, and then we're going to use these values inside the macro to select the correct date whenever a date selection similar to the previous one that we saw appears. So let's go to our HATS environment. You can see our macro open in the Visual Macro Editor, Advanced Editor in the first and second tabs, and third tab has a JSP that contains the code for setting our global variables. Let's take a look at the JSP. Okay, here we are in design view. This is the widget that's rendering the dates into clickable form. Let's see some code corresponding to that. This is the widget, and here we're setting our global variables using some JavaScript. This one HATSGV underscore date field underscore row global variable, and HATSGV underscore date field underscore column global variable. These are the two global variables we're setting. So as you can see here, through JavaScript, we're actually converting the position of the input field through a JavaScript function. Convert pos to row and convert pos to column. This function takes the position as an argument and returns us the row. So for both the row and column, we're using this function. Item name contains the value of the position of the input field on the whole screen. Similarly, return the column number. We use this other function, convert pos to column. This one. Okay, so now let's go to the Advanced Editor, where we need to perform some steps to enable macro variables. This is the first step. You can select this option, use, just open up. Okay, so we need to select this option. Use variables and arithmetic expressions in macro, and then we need to create our two macro variables, which we will do this in the variables tab. These are the already created variables here. These will contain the values of row and column global variables, string type variables. Now you can set any initial values for these two global variables. We'll be really setting them inside the macro, the values of our global variables. So now we save and exit. Let's go to the Visual Macro Editor, where we will assign the values to our macro variables or populate them. Now, this is the whole screen where we need to select the same date that the user clicked on the web page. It looks similar to the previous date screen. And this is one of the screens that we're going to encounter inside the macro, and we're going to have to select the same date the user clicked on previously. We'll go back to the Visual Macro Editor. Now let's go to screen 6. This is the screen we just saw, date selection screen. This is the screen where we'll assign the global variable values to our newly created macro variables. I'm going to go inside screen 6. Let's go to actions associated with screen 6. Now what I did was I added a new prompt action to assign my global variable's value to a macro variable. This is the action that will populate the global variable. This is already created one. Now just assign a prompt name here, any name here. Then we need to check this box, see if value to a macro variable, and select your macro variable that you've created previously from this drop down list here. We're going to populate the row macro variable here, so I'm going to select that and check this box. Do not insert value into field, because we're not going to send the global variables values directly to the whole screen. Now next, select this one, set prompt to global variable, and let's select the #gv_date field_row global variable from the drop down. Now basically this prompt action is assigning the value of the global variable to the macro variable. This is our main objective. This screen we're doing that. So this is for the row. Same goes for the column. Global variable to macro variable. Do the same thing. Prompt name. Select the variable here, column global variable, and also these two check boxes. Need to check, and then you set the prompt to the column global variable. So that's to these actions we're populating our two macro variables with the value for HATS global variables. Now let's take a look at the whole screen again. When the macro encounters the screen, it needs to select the same date the user clicked on. So we need to define a new input action on the screen that will allow the row and column values from their newly populated macro variables and give an input, the input field identified by these values. For example, this input field here. And these are the row and column values for this particular input field. So we need to create some sort of a new action here to utilize the values for macro variables. So this, now we create an input action on the same screen, third action. Now uncheck this box, insert at current position, first one, yes. And now use the macro variable names as the values for row and column. These macro variables contain the values of the row and column of the click date, which were assigned using global variables. We'll send this input string just below this, X plus enter at the position specified with the above row and column values. These are the different input fields for the different dates, as you can see here, and the correct date will be dynamically selected on this screen depending on what values do these row and column macro variables contain. Okay, so let's take a look at the web page again. Let's say click this for a third date, and it's going to be selected here on this input screen, input field here. Yes. So the two prompt action and screen 6 are doing the job of assigning the values of the row and column global variables to macro variables, and then the third action on the screen is then using their values in the row and column fields as an input action. So that completes our objective. You can use this feature in your HATS applications and scenarios where you need to make decisions based on the values of global variables and macros. Hope you enjoyed our tutorial. Log on to www.webspherehatsguru.com for more free tutorials and white papers on IBM Rational HATS. This is User Ali signing off. Thank you for watching.